Hey everyone, how's it going? Forrest here, again with another installment of my complete analysis of all of J.S. Bach's chorale harmonizations. Today we're looking at Erschienen ist der herrliche Tag, which translates to Here shining is the splendid day. This is a pretty interesting chorale, if anything, for the fact that it has kind of an ambiguous key identity or tonal identity, I guess. Each phrase is in its own respective key, but the key signature doesn't reflect the key of the entirety of the chorale, which is really interesting. So we're just going to hop into the analysis and see where it takes us. So 4 sharps in the key signature. We start on F sharp major and we end on F sharp major. So this is one of the rare cases where we don't have a key signature that indicates what key we're in, because 4 sharps would indicate E major or C sharp minor. But I think we start in the key of B major, actually, considering our first cadence is a perfect authentic cadence in the key of B, and we have A sharps throughout. And if we were to add A sharp to this key signature, it would put us in the key of B major anyways. So why we don't have A sharp in the key signature to start things off is probably more so a reflection of the rest of the chorale rather than the first phrase. But we start things off with F major, which is our 5. It's our dominant. Then we have B, B, D, and F sharp, which is our tonic, B major in root position, passing 7th in the bass. Then we have G sharp, B, D, and F sharp, which is a G sharp minor 7 chord in root position. That's 6, 7. And then we have A sharp, F sharp, C sharp, and C sharp. That is F sharp major over A sharp. That is our dominant in first inversion, 5, 6. And then we have a couple of non-chord tones here, 2 G sharps, 1 neighbor, 1 passing. And then we have A sharp, C sharp, F sharp, and D. And that is a D sharp minor chord, which is 3 in second inversion. Kind of like a pedal 6/4 if we just look at the harmonic rhythm, which is on beats 1 and beats 1 and 3. If we avoid or ignore beat 2, it's kind of just an embellishing series of G sharps that connect the F sharp to the A sharp and embellish the bass line. But ultimately we have 5 going to 3, 6, 4, which is kind of like a deceptive progression in a way, but more so just a reflection of the prolongation of the chord progression. You know, it could have very easily just ended here, but it doesn't. We have G sharp, B, E, and E. That is E major over G sharp. That is our subdominant in first inversion. And on this beat here, we have a passing 7th, and the chord is turned into root position. So this kind of turns into a, no need to reanalyze, it's just a 4-7 chord. And that 4-7 chord takes us to F sharp major, F sharp, A sharp, F sharp, and C sharp, which is our root position 5 chord, our dominant F sharp major. And then we cadence on B major 1. Remember this chord progression for later, this particular cadential formula. We're going to see it in a different key. So our next phrase ends in the key of C sharp minor, and it's a perfect authentic cadence. But interestingly enough, I think it goes to C sharp minor through the key of F sharp minor. If we look here in the melody, we have, or actually really this melody for this entire 2.5 measures is a melodic minor fragment in the key of F sharp minor. So I don't think we straight ahead go to the key of F sharp minor, but it's going to happen in and around the first beat here. Here we have F sharp, A sharp, F sharp, and C, which is our dominant in the key of B major, F sharp major. And then we have B, B, F sharp, and D, which is our tonic triad in the key of B major. And interestingly enough, I think this is where we modulate to the key of F sharp minor through our major subdominant. Bach does this quite often, actually. Maybe I have a little bit of a bias because this has been a device he's used in the last several chorales we've looked at, but still, modulating through the major subdominant is something that he's been doing with some regularity in his chorales up until this point. And then we get a passing 7th in the bass, and this time it's not an A sharp, so it's telling us that something has happened tonally. There's a tonal shift. We then have G sharp, B, G sharp, and E sharp. That's E sharp diminished over G sharp, which is 7, 6. Already a good sign where we have 4 going to 7, 6 from an analytical perspective. And then we have A, C sharp, F sharp, and F sharp. You can see kind of a comparison between B major and F sharp minor, where here the F sharp triad is now functioning as a tonic, in first inversion rather than a dominant in first inversion. Then we have a passing tone in the bass and a passing tone in the alto. Both of these are Gs, just like how we have Gs here. So we see some similarities between the two phrases. And then we have F sharp, C sharp, A, and C sharp, which is just our tonic triad and root position. Then we have G sharp, C, G sharp, and E. Now before we look ahead, I think this F sharp triad and root position is where we see a shift. We see C sharp in the melody here, and then we pretty much get a fragment in the key of C sharp minor. So I think this is where we go to C sharp minor. This is in fact now a 4-chord in root position before we get G, C sharp, G sharp, G sharp, C sharp, G sharp, and E, which is our tonic triad and second inversion as we're getting ready for a cadence. As a little bit of a passing chord here before we get to our 5-chord on beat 3 on the harmonic rhythm, we have F sharp, C sharp, A, and D sharp, which is D sharp minor 7 over F sharp, which is 2, 6, 5. Or sorry, not D sharp minor 7, D sharp, F sharp, A natural, and C sharp, which is D minor 7 flat 5. Over F sharp, and you know Bach loves his 2, 6, 5 chords, and it's interesting seeing a 1, 6, 4 interrupted by another passing chord. So I'll put this in parentheses here, even though it's pretty clear that that's what's happening. And then we get G sharp, B sharp, G sharp, and D sharp, which is G sharp major in root position, that's a 5-chord, and then we cadence on not C sharp minor, but C sharp major. These Picardy third minor cadences in the middle of a chorale are relatively uncommon but not unprecedented, and usually these are they're functioning as also kind of like a half cadence in the sense that this is also the dominant in another key. But this is probably the most interesting part of the chorale, because if we look at the next phrase and we just look at the whole, if we look at the entirety of the phrase, we don't see any chromaticism, and our next cadence is a perfect authentic cadence in the key of E. I think what's happening here is we are getting a modulation, and maybe we could say that we're modulating via a comma chord to the key of E major here, as this C sharp also functioning as the dominant of 2. If this analysis looks strange to you, that's totally fine. It kind of throws me for a loop as well. You can say that the modulation happens on this F sharp chord as well, because the F sharp chord is the diatonically common chord between the two keys, as opposed to forcing that projection here. But I'm looking at these two as more of a pair, because this is definitely the dominant of this F sharp, but we do not modulate to the key of F sharp, so I think this is alighting as a tonicization of the next chord, which is pretty interesting. And then we have, so this F sharp chord is followed by G sharp, B, E, and E, which is our tonic in first inversion. Kind of an interesting progression here, 2 going to 1, 6. We usually see 7 going to 1, 6, so when we have 5 of 2 going to 2 going to 1, 6, that's kind of an uncommon progression. 2 is usually preceded by, or succeeded by a dominant. And then we have E, E, G sharp, and E, which is like taking the chord and putting it in root position. And then we have A, E, A, and C sharp, which is A major in root position. That is our subdominant. Here we have D, F sharp, and B. That is B major over D sharp. That is our dominant B major in first inversion, before the chord gets briefly turned into root position on the next beat. And then, of course, we get E major afterwards, E, B, E, and G sharp, which is our tonic in the key of E major. Then, like I said, remember to pay attention to this progression right here. We get C sharp, A, E, and A, which is A major over C sharp. That is A major, our subdominant in first inversion, 4, 6, and then turns into A, C sharp, E, and G, so we get a passing 7 version of the chord here. Passing 7th, and then we get B, F sharp, D sharp, and F sharp, which is our dominant in root position B major, before we cadence on E major, E, G sharp, B, and E, which is our tonic. 4, 6, 7, 5, 1, 4, 6, 7, 5, 1. Alright, next cadence is an imperfect authentic cadence in the key of A major, and I think straight away rather, we have a D natural here, so I think we're already thinking in terms of A major, and this is a common chord. We can call this E major 5 in the key of A major, and D, G sharp, B, and E on the next beat of the harmonic rhythm is just turning it into a 7 chord in third inversion, 5-4-2. And we would expect 5-4-2 to go to 1-6, C sharp, A, E, and A. That's an A major chord in first inversion, or 1-6. We get a passing tone in the alto, and this leap in the bass as well. And then we get B, D, G sharp, and B. That is G sharp diminished over, that's G sharp diminished over B. That is 7-6. Sorry, the D natural was throwing me for a loop for some reason. And then we have A, E, A, and C sharp. So 1-6 going to 7-6 going to 1. It's kind of how I would have expected this progression to go. Something like a 1-6 going to a 7-6, or a 1 going to a 7-6 going to a 1-6. But instead we get this variation, which is interesting. Seldom do we see 2 actually going to 1. But then we have some non-chord tones here. We have D in the bass, we have F sharp in the tenor, kind of turns this chord into a 4-7 chord, D major 7, before we get, D sharp. We have D sharp, F sharp, A, and C sharp, which would be 7 of 5 rather. Apologies for getting the accidental. And then we have E sharp, C sharp, G sharp, and B. That's C sharp 7 over E sharp, which is 5-6-5 of 6, because F sharp is our submediant in the key of A major. It's our 6, and then of course goes to F sharp minor, F sharp, C sharp, F sharp, and A, which is our 6. Now if we looked at this fragment in the key of F sharp minor, which is what the last cadence is in, this is actually, we have D sharp, F sharp, A, and C sharp, which is actually 6-7 going to 5-6-5 going to 1. This little fragment right here, because we have this melodic minor fragment and F sharp here in the bass, and I think that this is just a roundabout way of saying that this is happening, even though it doesn't sound like we've modulated. F sharp is getting a little bit more than a tonicization, but I don't think it's quite crossed into the threshold of modulation yet. We then have G sharp, B, B, and E. That is E major over G sharp, which is our dominant in first inversion, 5-6. That chord turns into 5-3, E, E, G sharp, and E. So a fifthless 5 chord, but a 5 chord nonetheless, before we cadence on A, E, A, and C sharp, which is our tonic. And our last cadence is a perfect authentic cadence in the key of F sharp minor. We have D natural, B, F sharp, and B, which is B minor in first inversion, which I think in the key of F sharp minor is our common chord. 2-6 is now 4-6, B minor over D. And then we have C sharp, F sharp, and A, which remember this progression that we saw here in the key of C sharp minor. We're seeing a resurgence of that same chord progression. Did I say key progression? I meant to say chord progression. I don't know what a key progression is. But this is F sharp minor over C sharp, which is 1-6-4. And coincidentally, we're seeing a 4 as our pivot chord to go from F sharp to C sharp here. Here we're going from A to F sharp via a pivot chord that is recontextualized as 4 as well. That's pretty interesting. 2 neighbor tones, and this G sharp right here, we have G sharp, B, D, and F sharp, which is G sharp minor 7 flat 5 over B, 2-6-5. Bach loves his 2-6-5 chords. We then get C sharp, E sharp, and G sharp, which is C sharp major in root position, which is our 5 chord. So far we have pretty much the same progression so far. Before we cadence on 1. And again, it's another major chord, F sharp, A sharp, C sharp, and F sharp, which is our tonic major triad. Interestingly, I think ultimately this passing 2-6-5 chord is more coincidental and kind of an embellishment of the suspension. It's like 1-6-4 turning into 5. The alto is really showing the implied harmonic rhythm here, while the other voices are doing their own contrapuntal gestures, which ultimately blurry the texture a little bit, but add other contextual tones to further reinforce the key. Even though the key would have been just as obvious without this beat right here. Even if this was the melody was the only syncopation and the bass stayed static, or the lower voices stayed static, we'd still be in the key of F sharp minor. But regardless, that's today's analysis. I think this is a pretty quaint chorale. Super interesting that we start in B, end in F sharp minor, neither of which reflect the key signature. I think it's really interesting that sort of came to fruition in this chorale. Definitely not common in Bach's music for the key signature to not reflect the key, but sometimes we see key signatures that are a reflection of a transposed key, like we'll see 2 flats in the key, or we'll see 1 flat in the key signature and it'll actually be in the key of G minor, for example, which is an artifact of Renaissance modal transposition. However, this is kind of the inverse of that, because we end in the key of F sharp minor, which is a 3 sharp key signature, and we have 4 sharps in the key signature, which would be kind of like an F sharp Dorian rather than an F sharp minor. But he adds the D sharps, or he adds E sharps throughout with regularity, so maybe key signatures really aren't as codified as they are in the later tonal period. Definitely something to reflect on and to keep track of moving forward, but this is not something that's super common. This is just one of the exceptions to an otherwise fairly normative rule. But I will cap the analysis off with those closing thoughts. Thank you so much for watching the video. Thank you so much for continuing to support the channel. If you're interested in following me on my journey of analyzing all of Bach's chorale harmonizations, feel free to subscribe and hit the bell for the notifications so that you can get notified when I upload a video. I have a video upload every single day with a Bach chorale, and there are hundreds of videos scheduled for the future, so definitely stay tuned if you're interested in this sort of thing. I'm really excited to go on this journey with you all. Thank you again so much for watching, and I hope you take care.